For more on that high-stakes meeting between President Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, let's bring in former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine under President Clinton, Stephen Pifer. Ambassador, thanks for being on with us tonight. You know, Trump met with Zelensky yesterday in Florida and said they were maybe very close to peace, but does that accusation from Putin over an attempted strike on his residence derail the process? The president is saying that the apparent attack makes him very angry.
Well, Putin is clearly trying to derail the progress that appears to be being made in conversations between Americans, Ukrainians, and Europeans. It's unfortunate that President Trump took Putin's word at face value. Look, the Russians cannot even get the story straight. Foreign Minister Lavrov said the Ukrainians launched 91 strike drones against the Putin residence near Valdai. The Russian Ministry of Defense says there were only 89 drones launched against all of Russia and only 18 against the area where the Putin residence is. And moreover, people who live near the residence said that they heard no engagement by Russian air defense. So, it's really unfortunate, though, that President Trump believes Putin and it encourages Putin to continue to play him in the future.
Ambassador, it appears Trump and Zelensky were working off of the 20-point plan that the U.S. and Ukrainian negotiators have discussed in recent weeks. Has Russia responded positively to any of these points?
No, as the 20-point plan has been discussed by U.S. and Ukrainian negotiators and also by Europeans over the past 2 to 3 weeks, you've seen regular criticism coming out of Moscow of points in it. And this is part of the problem is, whereas those 20 points incorporate significant movement by the Ukrainian side, the Ukrainians now are prepared, I think, to make the painful decision of accepting some of their territory being under Russian control. But on the other hand, you've seen no change in Russian positions. And so you have this effort now where the United States, Ukraine, and Europe seem to be converging on a position, but the Russians are making very clear that they won't accept it.
So you touched on it a bit there. Putin still seems to believe that he can achieve his goals on the battlefield. So if Putin turns down the emerging 20-point plan, will Trump be prepared to apply pressure on Moscow to take a more compromising approach?
That's the big question, because I think you need to have an effort by the West, including by the United States, to put pressure on Moscow to persuade Putin that he cannot win on the battlefield, and the costs of trying are only going to mean greater cost for Russia. But that means intensified sanctions. It means more sophisticated weapons for Ukraine. It means perhaps even asking Congress to provide military assistance to Ukraine. Those things would send a strong message. But over the past year, we've seen that President Trump seems to be reluctant to put pressure on Moscow. In October, they sanctioned Rosneft and Lukoil, the two largest Russian oil producers, but then they softened those sanctions. So until there's a really strong message that the United States and West are going to pressure Moscow, it's hard to see why Putin would consider changing his position.
Ambassador Pifer, thank you.